So we had the social issues debate. The JLP's team of Kamina Johnson-Smith, Matthew Samuda and Pernell Charles Jr. went up against the PNP's Sophia Fraser-Binns, Raymond Price and Damian Crawford. So how did it go and who won? Thanks for joining me. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. Time for tea. Alright, so this was an interesting matchup. On the JLP side, Kamina Johnson-Smith, who is the Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister, Matthew Samuda, the Minister who has responsibility for things like water and the environment, as well as Pernell Charles Jr., who is the Minister of Labour and Social Security. On the PNP side, Sophia Fraser-Binns is the opposition spokesperson on environment and ecological heritage. Raymond Price is a former MP. Damian Crawford is spokesperson on education and community development. So some people are saying they don't like that the Debates Commission cut out the opening statements from the debate format. I like it because honestly, the opening statements were always like, yeah, come on, get on with it. 5 or 6 minutes of blah, blah, blah before the debate starts. So I like that we now get straight into the question and answer. TVJ's Janella Perseus was moderator. She's always top tier. No disclosure, I work with Janella and TVJ, just in case you didn't know that. Some people have complained in the past about how Janella moderates, which is that when time done, she cut them off. Thank you. And she absolutely cuts them off. But look now. First of all, there's a hell of a big clock on the studio wall facing the debaters, so they well know when time done because it counts down to 0. Then no. For people talking about why not let them finish a sentence. Come on, these are politicians. Give them an inch, they're going to take 800 meters. And if you really think, say them now go check up all of them little overtime seconds, and at the end of the debate, one side I go come and say, well, in all we got 5 minutes less or 7 minutes less, so they were unfair to us. If you don't think that's what they're going to do, you don't know politicians. You have to cut them off. Secondly, I have to highlight this. We ended up with no sign language interpreter at the first debate. Last time in 2020, there was some foolishness going on as well around sign language interpretation. And folks, this is not okay. All right, this is terrible. Debates Commission, we need to fix this like now ahead of the second debate. This is not good. Right? This is supposed to be in 2025, something that's so normal we don't even think about it. Anytime you have this kind of national event, sign language interpretation needs to be an automatic part of it. How did this happen? Just fix it, man. Fix it. So let me go through a couple of the questions and tell you what I thought of the answers. The questioners were Natalie Campbell from IRA FM and Romarda Lyons from TVJ. And I thought the questioners did a good job. So one of the first questions was about the rural bus system. And the PNP was asked about whether it's going to discontinue as well as the issue of a replacement. Now, Damian Crawford took this one. And let me just say this quickly. Where was makeup? And why did Damian look so shiny? Look, this is TV, right? And this is production. Let us not have silly, superficial stuff distract us from the meat of the matter. And yes, it does distract us. Watching somebody on TV with a very, very shiny face is distracting. That's one of the reasons we powder down people. And, I didn't even reach out to find why this happened, whether it's Damian refused makeup or whether or not there was something wrong going on in studio. I don't even care what it was. Let's just fix it. Let's not do this again. All right, so Damian's answer now. Apparently, what I understood him to be saying, the PNP does think there should be a rural transportation system for students. They don't like how the JLP went about it. So this is what he said. He said, one thing we'll immediately discontinue is one that doesn't incorporate the principals, the guidance counselors, and be more targeted in ensuring that those who are finding it most difficult to get to school are able to get to school, in particular deep rural children. And I actually went back to the exact words because I wasn't sure I was understanding him, and I'm still not understanding him. I'm not sure what this means. They'll discontinue what immediately and do what? I didn't think this answer was terribly clear. The rebuttal from government came from Pernell Charles Jr., and he said the JLP was doing what the PNP couldn't do to keep children safer. He spoke about cutting theft at JUTC and using the money to buy these buses. He said children will be safer, parents will save more. All right, so he trotted out a party line. A better response would have been to actually respond to the issue that Damian raised, which was the issue of children in deep rural Jamaica and the fact that these school buses aren't seen as appropriate for those kinds of communities. And by the way, that's a concern that a whole heap of Jamaicans have. So use the debates to elaborate on your position and actually explain to us what it is you're going to do and how you're going to deal with this particular problem. And that didn't happen here. And just to say this, I'm fine with debaters taking jabs at each other. It's a debate. People do that in debate. And I don't know about you. If I'm watching 90 minutes of television about serious stuff, I don't mind a little entertainment mixed in there. It's about television. We want to keep people engaged. What I don't like is when they get nasty or too personal. And also, jabs or no jabs, answer the question them still. The next question is about housing for young people. Very important issue. Purnell takes this one for the JLP. He says the government has increased the minimum wage. He talks about greater access to housing. He talks about support for youth. He talks about how the JLP manage the economy. He talks about social housing. The question was asking about doing more for young people who feel say they cannot buy a house. And I've done a whole program on TVJ's All Angles about this issue, so I know that despite what has been done, this is how young people feel about being able to own a home. So this answer saying, okay, we've done A, B, and C doesn't do the trick because young people still feel say they can't buy a house. Generally speaking, I don't think Purnell made a big impact in the debate. I had trouble even remembering his answers. So it was time for the PNP to rebut, and here came Raymond with a jab saying it's hard to rebut somebody who doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. He then went directly to the PNP's proposals for housing, including rent to own. I thought it was a very clear, very good rebuttal. Then there was a question from social media and the Jamaica Environment Trust asking about fish kills and deterrence in the future. The PNP's Sophia Fraser-Binns took this. She said the PNP will make the regulatory agency, the National Environment and Planning Agency, in NEPA independent, and that they'll create an independent tribunal for NEPA. She also said they'd ensure that environmental impact assessments are required by law and that communities would be made part of the decision-making process. Now, she actually made a mistake here saying that the PNP would sign the so-called ESCAZO agreement. That's an agreement for Latin America and the Caribbean dealing with access to environmental information and access to environmental justice. Jamaica has signed the ESCAZO agreement. What we haven't done is to ratify it. I thought that was a decent answer though. Then we had the rebuttal from Matthew Samuda. He talks about the PNP's record on the environment, saying it wasn't good. He spoke about the environmental bond the government had put in place, a $117 million environmental bond that the government drew down on in the case of the last big Rio Cobra fish kill, saying they increased fines for environmental breaches, and he also said they'll introduce new elements of the plastic ban, WLPA, and assent to the Shaw Protocol. Okay, it was a good answer, not great. This was a kind of theme for the JLP. They were heavy on their achievements, things they said they've done in the past, pretty light on proposals and the way forward. And by the way, I follow environmental issues, and I was like, WLPA, one name, so I had to look that up. Wildlife Protection Act. I know the act, I don't call it WLPA, and I had to look it up. So you have to remember communication when you're talking to people and using all these abbreviations that people don't understand. Also, I don't think he really addressed the issue in the question, which is going forward in terms of these kinds of pollution breaches, unless it is that he's saying that what is currently in place is okay, which he could never be saying. Then there was an interesting question about managing problems like traffic as a result of big entertainment events. I thought neither side did well on this question. Matthew spoke about the lack of urban planning in the past. He said in the next term, the JLP would ensure that all urban planning includes plans for entertainment zones and will reserve space for 24-hour event zones. Then somehow he started talking about pension scheme for entertainers. He started talking about tax incentives for environmental projects and started talking about a PNP government and new taxes. And I'm like, how we reach this so? What it sounded like is that he didn't really have an answer, so he was filling in with some JLP entertainment proposals. So Damien then comes in and rebuts with some comment about orange economy and PNP. Orange economy is what they call the economy to do with the creative industries. Then he's saying that JLP stole the entertainment zone idea from the PNP. All right, question and answer all no though from either side, as I mentioned earlier. So the reporter Natalie followed up And she said, what about dealing with no and the traffic problems? No. So Matthew said they're going to bring together the stakeholders to ensure there's adequate parking, and he then says the entertainment zone was actually Siaga's idea. So we reach back to Edward Siaga now. Well, still no answer. Since I'm informed by the police, they told me this on radio and TV, that when we have these big entertainment events, they do bring everybody together to talk about planning and logistics, and clearly we've still seen some of the huge problems we have in the past. So, as I said, no answer. So Damien comes back now and him start talk again about what Siaga did and did not come up with. And I'm saying again, how we reach back at Edward Siaga. We're asking about traffic problems we're all facing. No. And we still don't have an answer. He then says the PNP will reserve a part of their agro parks for parties. Then he talks about Sumfest and round robins and how small events don't get the same kind of leeway to go till morning like the big events, and says a PNP government will allow for small and large promoters to apply for extensions to permits under the Noise Abatement Act. So not only does the PNP also have no answer to the traffic issue that people are facing right now, but we're going to have more noise if they're the government. All right. Both the JLP and PNP are acting as if this entertainment zone idea is going to eliminate the problem of noise, where people in them bed at night time and try sleep. I'm not convinced, because it's like, where are the entertainment zones? It's not as if we have some desert somewhere we're going to put them in, but we'll see. More on that. All right, so another important question about labor law breaches in the BPOs. Raymond now started telling us about the PNP liberalizing the telecom sector from way back when. Then he started talking about some other stuff. Now answer the question. With about 20 seconds to go now, he said BPO operators don't understand our labor laws, so PNP government would educate them. You're supposed to be protecting our workers. This sounds like you're all about cozying up to the BPO operators. I didn't hear any firm principle about protecting our workers. So then now the rebuttal comes from Purnell, who, remember, is a Labour minister. What did we hear from him? Well, he told us the BPO sector gives young people jobs, and that he says government inspectors monitor and take necessary steps when breaches are found. This makes it sound as if we're catching the problem, except several media exposés have shown we're not. So I would have liked to hear from him a more robust statement of how they're going to do better, and I did not hear this. For me, both sides failed on this question. All right, I can't do a blow-by-blow of every question, although you should tell me in the comments if you actually would like me to do a blow-by-blow on each question. And then, I can always do some additional videos, maybe a part 1 and a part 2 or something like that. But tell me if you're fine with just picking out a few questions, or if you do want to hear me analyze every question blow-by-blow. Overall, though, I thought it was a good debate, and I thought some really important and interesting issues were raised. The JLP's Matthew Samuda gets my vote for best debater. I thought he was calm. I thought he was knowledgeable. I thought in his answers he did generally manage to get in a couple of those jabs without going overboard, but he also answered the questions generally. The JLP's Kamina Johnson-Smith seemed to be there to trot out the JLP's record of achievements without much more. I thought her answers were underwhelming. Look, I think Kamina is super bright, but I don't think she did great here. I didn't think Purnell Charles Jr. was strong at all, even in the areas within his direct portfolio, and honestly, sometimes I even forgot he was there. I thought Raymond Price was the best debater on the PNP side. I thought he was sharp, he was focused, he got in his jabs, but he also set out clear plans. For me, though, he loses out to Matthew Samuda overall, because I like Matthew's tone much better. I think Raymond has a snarky kind of tone sometimes that rubs me the wrong way, and I really dislike some of his personal references. Sophia Fraser-Binns, also very bright. I thought she did okay on the question she answered. I thought Damian Crawford would have done better. Felt like he was a bit off. So, best debater, definitely for me, the JLP's Matthew Samuda. Which team won? Well, a couple of points first. I understand the JLP wanting to focus on what they've done, but look, that is only going to carry us so far. I don't think they have yet found a balance between this is what we've done and this is what we plan to do, and time is kind of running out. Then now, look, at some point the JLP is going to have to acknowledge that they've been in government for the last 10 years and then also again from 2007 to 2011. So of the last 18 years, they've been in government for 14. And at this point, the constant throwbacks to what the PNP did in years gone by kind of get ridiculous. On the PNP side, I thought they had a better team debate overall. I thought they had a more cohesive performance. I thought I got more out of them in terms of what they plan to do if they're to form the government. So, I give the debate to the PNP. That's where I have to leave it, folks. Want to know what you think? So as always, comment below. Please keep it civil. Like the video. Share it with somebody who might be interested. Subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you know anytime I drop a new video. I'm Dion. Thank you so much for watching. Back to my tea.